Magical thinking, the American establishment and even the international establishment holds up its system. And we have in the American side of the news, we have two great waves. One is the debt wave and the strip mining of the American economy by the upper 0.1% of the great ones. And we also have a tremendous movement, tremendous moment actually, Friday, of social reengineering, a social engineering imposed by a court which vacates hundreds of laws without replacing them, without directing anybody to uh, revise them, without remedy, it would seem. And that is to deconstruct marriage, which is a legal agreement between a man and a woman. And now it has been really converted into an agreement between two people who really like each other and have sex together. And it could be two people or more. It could be a man and a man, a woman and a woman. And there is effectively a destruction of marriage. And that is an ideology, of course, and it does not connect with reality. It is a kind of magical thinking that has been very persuasive of five judges, which in their ruling Friday, Obergefell, they they deconstructed, we are to understand, marriage in all the states that did not already have a gay marriage constitution or a gay marriage statutory system. Now, what has happened is that effectively leaves marriage again to you, my listener, the man who has a right to marry. And before that ruling came, every gay had a right to marry. Every homosexual had a right to marry, just as you have, and just as you do. But now he has a right to marry someone of his own sex, which is why he wants to have a homosexual union to sanctify his homosexual sex and make it right and proper and true, not subject to anybody's judgment or criticism. Well, magical thinking is something that we're seeing across the globe, not perhaps in any greater strength than in other eras, but I think here, because we are at the height of the credit bubble, multiple credit bubbles, and we're seeing the poor man of Europe, Greece. Well, actually, the poor man of Europe is Turkey, but Greece is facing disaster with its gigantic portfolio of soured debt, which is held now mostly by national governments in Europe. The banks having offloaded all that risk onto those governments, and backing these governments, of course, making these governments at least somewhat legitimate, the taxpayers or the users of that currency in the various states. The headline of the Wall Street Journal today, of course, is of the bank holiday in Greece, which is going to last at least 6 days, and that happened when the European Central Bank yesterday decided not to expand what the Wall Street Journal referred to as a lifeline of emergency funds. Well, that's just to say more debt. And there's always been, by the elites in Greece, the debt has been continually rolled over as those few people. They're just a few families, very high-minded, the great ones of Greece, who have had their way, and meanwhile, as the people have suffered, they have suffered under padded government that consumes a great portion of the gross domestic product, and they have suffered from diminishing prospects using the euro, and then the euro, of course, flooding the lifeblood of that economy. The euro, which circulates as if it were lawful money in Athens and all the towns. The shutdown happened without prior warning. And how can something like this happen? Asked a retired public servant, Angeliki Tsaraironou, a 67-year-old retired state worker who stood in the drizzle after arriving too late at one empty ATM in the Greek capital. The thing of interest is how bank holidays work. Here, this bank holiday seems very generous, and you will be able to withdraw from a bank machine $66 a day. That's 60 euros from each account. So you'll be limited in what you can draw out. That's enough to buy groceries and take a taxi if you are needing that kind of liquidity every day. Germany is Greece's the Greek government's biggest creditor, and it said Sunday that well, that it's not things are not looking good. Headlines in the German press said "game over" and the word "exit" in ancient Greek. Leading politicians who had called for leniency with Athens in the past voiced fury, the story said, and many conservatives said it was high time for a Greek exit from the euro to be prepared. And the question, of course, is if you're a depositor, why are you still a depositor? If you were a depositor Friday, you're one today, you're one tomorrow, the weekday, the week has begun, the business week has begun, and you are a depositor still, but you can't get what you think is yours out of the system. Well, every person who believes that banks are places of honor and integrity and that they're all solvent is living in a world of magic. And the magic, of course, there's reason to have that magical thinking, and that is that FDIC in our country is the guarantor of every bank. And if FDIC takes over a bank, it's always on a Friday, and it strong arms over the weekend some other lender to buy those deposits or buy that bank or part of the bank anyway that has gotten in over its head. In other words, whose insolvency is too brazen to be allowed to stand, and so whose insolvency has to be covered over by that company going into receivership, kind of forced into liquidation or forced into reorganization, taken over, if you will, nationalized by FDIC. We have the same situation here in the United States, and I dare say and that's because not just the banking system is just part of the problem since the 1970s. With the rise of the Chicago Exchange in futures that escaped the humdrummery of pork bellies and corn and the wheat crop, and that happened in Chicago. The Mercantile Exchange, the very sharp man who worked that place and ran that place, said, "Well, we need to get into selling financial instruments." And debt guarantees, insurance contracts, all of these things need to be commoditized. And that happened. That's been going on now for 40 years or so, and has created in the national economy in the United States and really around the world a gigantic bubble of credit, which has created remarkable malformations, remarkable deformations, not just in corporate structures around the country, in some of the great companies even. There is a hollowing out of these companies as the financial gyrations of the managers takes precedence over actual production, the actual value of products and services. These are taking the second order of things, and the primary way of making money is playing the casino, which is where Greece has played, and where all the people who have been making billions and billions of dollars, but producing nothing, that's where they are, and that is where the magical thinking is supported. Right? It's supported. We have magical thinking on marriage because we have magical thinking about money. Money itself is not anything in particular anymore. It's what people say it is at any moment. It's not a known thing, and your bill, your green rectangle, as I like to call it, is not a lawful bill. It is kind of a counterfeit banknote. It looks like it represents something. It looks kind of official. Of course, it has a former president on it, even one who's pretty good. That would be Washington. And it has Alexander Hamilton, who's going to lose his place to a woman, some kind of woman, we're told, on another banknote. And we're hurting in our country because of magical thinking, and magical thinking has a great power. And until there is a sharp prick, if you will, a pinprick of the balloon, we're going to have great riches and great confidence going forward in national economy and in the ideas even of the magic of marriage. The magic of marriage made evident by the broadening of it, the granting of marriage to homosexual people who identify their whole lives, their whole identities with their sexual proclivities, who for now are homosexual. Later they'll figure out who they really are and get married. in the old sense, right? In the old sense, a man will find a woman and realize, well, I was really screwed up, and now I'm going to get married. I'm going to do it right. Well, my name is David Toulis, and our show is Newgonomics.com. We are here at AM 1240 on News Talk Radio, and I must say, we have. For the whole life of this radio station, we have argued for very good things, and I'm not going to take time now to rehearse what we've done. I think there's a lot to get to. We want to hear about Franklin Graham and what Alabama Chief Justice Roy Moore says. Both are giving sell signals, if you will. They're saying dark times are ahead. But my own thinking about dark times ahead is tempered. It is gloomy. I must say, since Friday, there's been a decided gloom in the Toulis household, and in many other places. There were my wife Jeanette said that the women at church yesterday were just there was a pall over the conversation at lunch, which we have between the morning worship service and the afternoon worship service. There's always a lunch every Lord's Day. My own thinking is that while there is certainly much to be worried about and much to be afraid about, there is ahead invigorating conflict where people will certainly be damaged. Good people will certainly be wronged. And the reigning ideology, the ideology that has won the heart of justice, if you will grind against the countervailing theory, which is to say local economy and the free market. And by that, I suggest that local economy is my shorthand for how Christianity works out in the details, right? That's what local economy, in fact, is. Local economy is the free market, and I would say we have a local economy, even if we live under a Soviet-style totalitarianism. It's still there. It's still there, working along the edges in what could be called the gray market or the black market, or if one is bold enough to say so, the free market. I identify it in very positive language, of course, and that is the free market. But in a totalitarian society where the good people have all the high offices and whose lights burn late into the evening, right across the square, you can see all the lights on at the Ministry of Justice. While they're working, the marketplace is going along quietly, and people are having their families, and they are like the Israelites in Egypt, as the enslavement rose over the decades and increased its burden over the decades. They still had incredible number of children. How is it that those Hebrews who were rescued by Joseph when Joseph became the lead administrator of the state, the top bureaucrat, he brought his people in, and they were given the best land, Goshen, in Egypt. And even while they were enslaved, they kept having baby after baby after baby. How is that? What kind of optimism did those people have? What kind of courage enlivened the souls of that slave population? How is it that even as the Pharaoh got smart to them, right, got wise to the Israelites, and said, well, I better suppress these people because they might turn against me in battle, right? So he slowly began to bring edicts down, like, probably not 108-page edicts like Obergefell decision, but ones nonetheless that had some pinching detail about bricks and straw and who had to pay for the horses, and if a wagon wheel broke, who's on whose tab that wagon wheel repair was made. Was it on Pharaoh's tab, or was it on the Israelites' tab? It may have still been a rented wagon, and the Israelites still had to pay for it as he was hauling the block of stone toward the great city that the Israelites were enslaved to make. Well, Franklin Graham is warning, the son of Billy Graham is warning of Christian persecution. And that is the main tenor of what the press has today. And on all fronts, there seems to be the sense that there is what I call, there's going to be an invigorating conflict. An invigorating conflict where people who are Christians are going to have to say, okay, well, what do I really believe, and what's it worth? Now, you, my listener, I know you're not a practicing Christian, but you know people who are, right? And so now is the time for them to really stand up for for something, right? They've played along. They've played along for decades. Your Christian friends and their parents and their family members, they've played along. There are all kinds of evils that these Christian people have accepted, and probably their church ministers have quietly accepted without saying anything. Now they can't not say something, okay? And so Christianity is going to be faced with persecution. Now, Franklin Graham, according to Todd Starnes, Todd Starnes writes for FoxNews.com, and he's covering culture wars. And Graham, in an interview, I believe, says, you better be ready and you better be prepared because it's coming. There will be persecution of Christians for our stand. He's, of course, Billy Graham's son and the CEO and president of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and Samaritan's Purse, the fine Christian ministry aiding the poor in other parts of the world. I'm disappointed because the government is recognizing sin, he said. This court is endorsing sin. That's what homosexuality is, a sin against God. Graham said regardless of the ruling, he will refuse to marry homosexual couples. The Supreme Court decision means, Starnes says, that gay rights now trump religious liberty. And if you think the cultural purging of the southern states has been breathtaking, wait until you see what LGBT, I call them lug butts because I don't like acronyms. I'm very clumsy with acronyms. Activists are about to unleash on American Christians. He says, if pastors are going to be forced to provide marriage services for gay couples, I'm not going to do it. And Judge Moore, who is I believe he's a Reformed Baptist Christian, and I think he may be an adherent of the Primitive Baptist Church. We have I think 3 or 4 Primitive Baptist churches here in Chattanooga, and he says that Christians will be persecuted. He spoke Sunday at Kimberly Church of God, and saying he could not accept the ruling as correct. He said it made sin a national right, and it was as wrong as the court decisions that allowed slavery. This is according to an Associated Press report at GulfLife.com. And he also has a quote saying that you Christians are going to be persecuted according to the U.S. Supreme Court dissents. And he says that sodomy for centuries has been declared to be against the laws of nature and against God, and now he warns that if we say that in public, and he says he guesses he is, that he's violating somebody's civil rights. He says, have we elevated morality to immorality? Do we call good bad? And what are we Christians to do? And what's interesting about this event Sunday is that the Chief Justice of Alabama's High Court stood in a worship service, a house of God, a Christian assembly, but all around him were American flags. And he stood beneath a projected image of Jesus on the cross. Why are there federal flags around a pulpit? That scene, which you probably can find on YouTube, is a picture, I would like to suggest, of the problem that American Christianity faces. It has made an alliance. It has made league with national government, and it is one from which it is going to be long punished because now it has linked itself with the ideology of the modern nation state, the perfections of progressivism, the power, the glory of modern national bureaucratic welfare and warfare state thinking, and that though Judge Moore is very much a states' rights legal theorist, he stood among Christians who were not really states' rights in their hearts. Now they may be skeptical of America or the United States, and they may love America, but their Christianity is severely compromised. If you go to Nuganomics.com today, you can read an important essay on this question, and it is about how passive and pessimistic Christian pulpits in Chattanooga face what I call an invigorating conflict, an invigorating warfare. It will be severe, it will be harsh, but in the end, grace will win out. Now, if you need medical services, Grace will win out there too. If you go to Quick Surge, which is a walk-in surgery clinic run by a man who's taking on the medical establishment by walking around it. He's not fighting. He's not putting up his dukes. David Red at Quick Surge is walking around. He is bypassing the obstacle, which is the insurance government cartel in the medical reimbursements field. He doesn't take insurance. He does walk-in surgeries in the way of moles and skin tags and lacerations. And he publishes his prices online on his website, quicksurge.com. That's QUIKSURG.com. He is part of the solution to a dysfunctional and overpriced and impersonal medical system. David Red at Quick Surge. My name is David Toulis, and I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes here at Nuganomics.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. hotnewstalkradio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Soddy Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Soddy Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Soddy, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened our first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. The U.S. Supreme Court says a drug linked to some botched executions does not represent cruel and unusual punishment and can be used.
A 5-4 ruling authored by Justice Samuel Alito concludes Oklahoma death row inmates first offer no alternative method of execution, reducing the risk of pain, and second, offer insufficient evidence the drug does entail a substantial risk of severe pain.
Fox Radio's Jared Halpern. It was the second straight failure of a cargo ship meant for the International Space Station. Despite yesterday's explosion of the Falcon rocket just after launch, SpaceX CEO Gwen Shotwell says they'll forge ahead.
We'll be continuing to monitor all the data that we collect to identify the issue that we experience, fix it, and get back to flight.
More than 5,000 pounds of cargo was on board. More Americans signed contracts to buy homes in May. Pending sales climbed to their highest level in more than 9 years. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
The federal president will be visiting the state capitol Wednesday. And there's another story, I think on TV9's website, that says that a federal judge's order will be keeping open 2 abortion clinics, one in the Bristol area and the other in Nashville. My name is David Toulis. Our show is Nooganomics.com. We are trying to avoid magical thinking and to see what exciting times are ahead as the crisis deepens. The crisis has several parts, and one of them, of course, is cultural. And there was a, you might say, an effective form of harikiri or self-murder or suicide that occurred Friday, that comes just at the very end of what Sir John Glubb, an Englishman, a historian, a military man of the last century, says is the lifetime of any empire. Any empire, he said, almost universally has a life of 250 years, and the American empire is just shy of 250 years. This year, it depends on when you count the beginning of the republic. Is it the Philadelphia Assembly, or was it the do you have to count the time of the states ratifying the Constitution? It's about 250 years, and here at the end, we've had this demolition of the main source of capital and the main source of social stability here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. And that, of course, was the decision on marriage, the decision, or the opinion, rather. It's not really, it's a decision, but it's an opinion that has no force except the force that we granted. And since high courts are viewed as effectively legislative branch, their edicts, their opinions are given the effect of law, and they are, as I like to think, that the opinion that came down followed the neutron bomb theory of law that decimates like a neutron bomb decimates a city. Destroys all human life, even the insects hiding in the walls, in the sawdust. They too are deceased after the explosion, but the buildings are all standing. All the structures are standing. The bridges are there. The street lamps are in fine working order. Only there's no life. And the High Court ruling Friday, we are to understand, had that effect in Tennessee. It had that effect on the Tennessee Constitution and the downflowing statutes in the Tennessee Code. Annotated, it made the words on the page so much gibberish, so much hieroglyphic. You could even say maybe Russian Cyrillic letters or Chinese hieroglyphs. Only it's not really saying too much, because you can interpret Chinese letters if you know them or have someone who does. You can interpret the meaning. Here, you have what would be effectively like you might say ipso lorem type, the type that page designers use to fill blank space with words to make it look like words, but they're just meaningless sort of Latinate sort of phrases. That's what the Tennessee Constitution was turned into in a select point, right? Very precise bombing, and the statute underneath it. And then, though, all the laws that flow out of the assumption that marriage is between two two human beings who are of the opposite sex, one man and one woman, or one woman and one man, right? That is the option in our law, and all court decisions up till now have held that as a truism. And now there has been this great ejaculation, you might say, a deconstructive purpose that has been poured through the 50 states and washed, slopping up on the other side there in California. And the waves are going to be running around, the legal waves are going to be running around the bowl, if you will, of our country for decades, causing ruin and drowning many people, and it is going to be tremendously decapitalizing. It is part of the it is what at the height of the Weimar Republic, when Hitler came in, he put a stop. He was a dictator and a tyrant and a murderer. And when he came in, one of the things that he, in his indignation, objected to was the very loose ways of the Weimar social scene, which was full of rampant sexuality, homosexuality, prostitution, and sexology, and so on. All very degrading of German culture, which had in decades prior had a Lutheran or Christian bearing, but which it lost in the excitement of times after the war. Well, my name is David Toulis. I wanted to mention, if you're looking to buy a used car, go to Automax. Automax is a used car dealership which has a big advantage for you, and that is prices on fine quality cars that have been driven by others before you, that are $2,000 to $3,000 less than vehicles on any other lot. Now, the reason he can do that is that he has a kind of a lean operation, like my radio station. Hot News Talk Radio 1240 AM is a very lean outfit, has no employees, and yet produces a terrific rocking program here with Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and CBS News and NASCAR and NFL. We have NFL. And we're lean, but we're still lean and have minimal costs, and that's why we offer the best, just terrific treatment for our advertisers. Very low cost advertising expense. Now, Automax is like that, very lean, and so offering you a great price. Ask about what he can do for you. The name is Louis Otero, and his wife Melanie. You might meet her too. She helps out. And the lot is Automax. That's 643-2886, 643-2886. Now, make sure you, my listener, to do me a favor, and that is to mention that you heard about Automax from me, David Toulis, here on the radio station. We are the radio station for Automax, and would like you to just connect these two businesses by your good words, right? Your good words for me, David Toulis. Our solution to the national disaster, the magical thinking that really controls much of what we are seeing and reading, is having your own business. And I belabor this point because I think that is part of, you could say, kind of a reconstruction of our local economy. It needs to have more people starting their own businesses. And I don't mean going into debt for it. I mean trying to obtain capital for a business that's on your scale and your ideas and following your genius, right? You may be involved in a job that's a dead end that doesn't have any compatibility with your real gifts, right? The gifts God gave you. So what you have to do is find a way of aligning your making of your bread with your great gifts. And you're probably an average person just like me. I'm an average person. I just work hard at what I do. And I say that about my children. I have 4, and people say, wow, your daughter's an artist, and so on. And they, make me want to have big eyes. But I say, no, all my children are just very average people. We just work hard at it, at being, maybe better at something than other people. Now, to do that, you have to have your own idea for business, or contact Bruce Krebs. Bruce Krebs runs Entrepreneur Source, and he will get you into a franchise that fits your background, your interest, the amount of money you have, whether or not you have family members willing to take part in it, and fitting our local economy and the times in which we live today. Bruce Krebs, Entrepreneur Source. Call him today. Call Bruce today and get on his agenda, because he can definitely help you. He can even show you a way in which you can get $100,000 plus on just your signature. Find out about that. His number is 875-5621. That's 875-5621. 5621. Magical thinking pervades the national economy. Because we have magical thinking in Europe, we have the Greek crisis, which some are saying could be the spark for contagion. Right? Contagion has many ways of describing it, but I think one useful one that I think that is used by the establishment. Right? The establishment uses the contagion concept to frighten you and to get more power for its organs of administration, which are, of course, regulatory in nature. And because we have magical thinking, we have confidence in these organs, but we need to understand that the Greek disaster, the lockup of banks, the closing down of banks on a bank holiday in Greece is something that can happen here just as easily as anywhere else. And if you, my listener, since you're a small person, small fry like me, you and I are kind of Joe Sixpack. Bank runs that will happen in our future will be when you hear about it, it's already too late. You get that phone call from a frantic office worker who's left the office early, is passing your bank and saying, "Hey, there's a line out there." Well, when you get that call, it's already too late. And the reason you're in that position, and the reason your friend is in that position, is he rushes past toward his bank, probably a national bank of some kind, is that we are involving ourselves with dishonest currency that is not lawful bill, where a bill is supposed to mean something, right? The words on a bill are supposed to say that, hey, the person holding this bill of lading, if you will, this invoice, he has this many goods in the back of his truck, and here's his name, here's the owner, and this bill. If you have this bill or sign this bill, it allows you to take possession of the real things, right? The lines of type that describe the assets are just lines of type, but they do make reference to something that's a real value. The bill is not the value. The bill is not why the man crossed the country in his truck. It was actually to deliver a giant box full of goods for your store. The piece of paper is just a representation of it, a record of it. So we have bills that circulate in Chattanooga and Hamilton County that are pretend bills. They don't actually give you a claim. They don't let the holder of the piece of paper say, okay, I see what it says, $1 or $5. I think I'm going to go and get my $5 now. If you go to a bank and give a $5 bill, they'll just give you 5 ones, right? They won't give you or bunch of quarters or dimes, or they won't give you $1. $1 is silver, and we have effectively a fiat currency, a dishonest currency. It is a kind of a counterfeit money, but the Secret Service does not make any claims about it, does not attempt to regulate it being unlawful. But in fact, if you, my listener, have a nice photocopier in your back office and run off some bills, the Secret Service will certainly call you a counterfeiter and take you to the clink and have you charged by a grand jury or under an information. And you're a bad guy, right? Because the printing was done in the wrong place. The printing has to be done in the auspices of the banking sector or the Federal Reserve System. If a real bill is printed, of course, it has to be from the printing business of the national government, serving the national bank. Well, we live in an era of magical thinking, and to find out what magical thinking comprises, I turn to one of my favorite writers, Charles Hugh Smith, whose blog is of twominds.com. Magical thinking contains several points, and I think it's worth considering. That we can grow our way out of debt by expanding debt, okay, and that's what's happening in Greece. There's always a new liquidity infusion, but it's not liquidity that's infused in the Greek financial sector. It's more debt, right? More debt saves us from our older debts, and so therefore it can be called liquidity. That is really magical thinking. And another variant would be that if we simply print enough money, we can pay for everything that we want. And another one is that with some new miraculous technology, just insert the current example, we will have limitless energy or food, all at zero cost or near zero cost. And another line of magical thinking says that if we just tweak the system with some minor reforms, all the big problems will go away. And another one of his points is that new technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. And he says this kind of thinking helps us to not see things that in his mind and his analysis are really obvious. He says that things stop working well or stop working, period. And the causes of this problem that we're not seeing are many: self-interest, historical habit, loss of accountability, the ratchet effect, what he calls bureaucratic complexity, diminishing returns, unproductive friction. And he says the list is long. And because we have a financialized economy, probably 25% of the money that's generated or that's created that moves in the economy is not the result of cheaper industrial processes, better products, better services, nothing at all. It's just gambling. It's kind of casino gambling in the financialized sector, a sector that has ballooned the portfolios of great banks such as JP Morgan 25, 30, 100 times. These were small brokerage houses before the great boom in gambling on currency differentials, and now they are gigantic businesses. Financialization is really ruined because nothing is produced in all these maneuvers, all these news-oriented, news-generated sometimes developments in the financial sector. How is it that we know things aren't working? I looked, and he mentions, and I checked the budget for San Francisco, a city that has 850,000 people. Guess what the budget is of that city? It's $9 billion. How is it that a city can have a $9 billion budget? What is a dollar if you have to have 9 billion of them to run a city that has fewer than a million people? He says, what are promises of endless swag but lies cloaked in magical thinking? He's talking about Greece and democracy and magical thinking. He says that representative democracy is organized bribery on a mass scale. Politicians seeking control of the spigots of state wealth and power promise endless swag to voters. Those who promise the most swag and do so with the most inspirational, soaring rhetoric win elections and gain control of the spigots of state wealth and power. And debt is the ultimate political aphrodisiac. That is how everything is being paid for in national economy around us. Even here in Chattanooga, we are buoyed aloft by national economy and its great mountains of debt. It is an aphrodisiac, of course, that creates desire for more. It enables an orgy of consumption, a bacchanalia, he says, of spending on the backs of children and the yet unborn who don't vote. Well, that's why in terms of the national debt and the debt of the American economy, that's why you would say, why are 2 abortion clinics still killing babies in Tennessee, thanks to a federal judge? The most potent of all political fantasies is that growth will solve every problem, that we can grow our way out of corruption, artifice, lies, kleptocracy, and most importantly, out of debt. In other words, you keep borrowing, and then eventually all the debt will be paid down. We just have to borrow enough to make it happen, and we have to have enough time to pay everything back. Well, my name is David Tulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com. The story about the war on marriage, I think, is part of this making magic. We are making magic, and the dark side of making magic for gay theory is that there will be, as Judge Moore and Franklin Graham, the son of the very famous American evangelist Billy Graham, are saying, there's going to be persecution, and I understand that. I've had some connection with persecution before, and have been called names in public for being a Christian, for being a defender of the free market, for being actually kind of aggressive of the same. And here in Hamilton County, according to John Wilson at the Chattanoogan.com, on Friday, there were 4 marriage licenses issued. 4 applications from gay couples on the first day were granted by the county clerk, Bill Knowles. Rhiannon Pierce and Phyllis Wood were the first couple, these two females. Mr. Knowles said, we also had 1 couple come into the vehicle title and registration office requesting to add each other to the title. They presented their marriage certificate issued by the Washington, D.C. government. We complied. There's a quote from him saying further, we have been advised by the Tennessee Attorney General that county clerks may begin issuing marriage licenses immediately under the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Obergefell. The Attorney General will hold a press conference, etc. And Mr. Knowles went on to say, pointing out that his incapacity to do anything to say no. And the reason is that his office is not constitutional, though it is constitutional, and that it is purely administrative. And he says, a public official in many instances may hold a different view regarding laws and court actions. Ours is an administrative office, and legal sources advise we don't have the ability to choose which duties to perform. In other words, because it's administrative only, it simply, he is like a minister. That's what administrative means. It means that one is a minister, just like the gospel minister, right? The gospel minister doesn't give his own words, one would hope, for the benefit of Christianity. He gives God's words. And so Mr. Knowles, his words are not the Tennessee law. They're not the Tennessee Constitution. They are, as he declared Friday, it is the Obergefell opinion out of Washington. That obviates, that saves him from his oath of office, that absolves him from any wrong that would come after having sworn to uphold the Tennessee Constitution, which now he is free to ignore. He is free to ignore it because it is generally held that high court opinions vacate, as the Associated Press will say, vacate and nullify and make rendered null and void a law passed by the people of the state of Tennessee. The people of Tennessee really were wrong to have done that, but that wrong has been done. It was in the statute and it was in the code, and now we, in our wisdom here in Washington, we're going to let you keep those words on the page, but we're going to declare, and we're going to have you agree with us, right? You will agree with us that they mean nothing. They're not enforceable, and they can't be acted upon. They're simply empty letters, as if there were so many bits of pseudo hieroglyph, if you will, on the page. Herbert Slattery III is the Attorney General. He says, today's United States Supreme Court decision not only changes the definition of marriage, but takes from the states and their citizens the longstanding authority to vote and decide what marriage means. To the Tennessee citizen who asks, we don't get a chance to vote on this in some way, the answer from the Supreme Court is a resounding no, you do not. For the court to tell all Tennesseans that they have no voice, no right to vote on these issues is disappointing, he says. The court, nevertheless, has spoken, and we respect that decision. Our office is prepared to work with the governor and the General Assembly as needed to take the necessary steps to implement the decision. Well, this of course these are men who lack constitutional testosterone, and they do not believe that the Constitution that they swear to uphold. Every day they swear to uphold it, right? Every day that Herbert Slattery III goes into his office, he swears effectively, or he's living out the promises he made in taking the oath of office as the chief lawyer on the state payroll to uphold the Constitution. No, does not have to do that, and no, he would never have Bill Knowles think that he had to do that either. We can lay the Constitution aside. Even the federal Constitution, we don't have to honor that. And we don't have to honor that because we believe in judicial supremacy. Now, the Constitution, of course, says that there is a constitutional supremacy, and that the Constitutional lives as long as people believe it lives, and they can act in good faith on its promises and its declaration of how power is divided. The people in our federal Constitution retain their power, though everyone, you might say all the great actors of commercial government here in Hamilton County and their advisors in Nashville and their advisors at the county attorney's office all say the same thing, that no, the Constitution doesn't live anymore on this point. We're going to have to just go with what the court says. No one has any balls. No one is going to say we stand on the law and we will defend the law. Well, this is David Toulis, and my show is Nuganomics.com. I do thank you for joining me. There's a man named Eric Pelton. He stands on his numbers, and he is the numbers guy, and his company is E.J. Pelton Company, and it is an accounting and tax service that works to keep you in the money that you've earned as much as possible. He's a CPA, and online you can find out about him at ejpelton.com. Call the number and ask for Eric, 622-3156. That's 622-3156, and make sure you mention that you are the Nuganomics.com listener, and we appreciate your giving me a few minutes of your time. Make sure you call E.J. Pelton Company. I've got some things I want you to hear. Thanks.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you calling me yeller? Them's just fighting words.
Being called yellow, not a compliment. Yellow, the international symbol for caution. Yellow. You certainly wouldn't want to eat yellow snow. Yuck. We typically avoid yellow. So why would you put your hard-earned money into an outdated, expensive, slower yellow page? Or even trust their advice? Especially when your hard-earned advertising dollars could go much further, earning you greater profits, using the multifaceted resources and expertise of Chattanooga Web Services. You want real results for your advertising dollars. The local Chattanooga media experts, Chattanooga Web Services, will help your business grow, utilizing diversified media resources that's affordable to you, whether it involves the internet's World Wide Web, video, audio, or modern-day print. So don't get sucked into the yellow folks trying to upsell you into spending even more money as it ventures into a territory unfamiliar to them, the internet. Call Chattanooga Web Services, 424-3373. That's 424-3373. Or go to ChattanoogaWebServices.com, ChattanoogaWebServices.com.
Don't worry, just relax. You need a car. Come to Automax.
My wife and I keep the cost down. We sell a quality vehicle at a great price. Our overhead is low. I have no employees, so I can keep my costs down. In turn, the consumer gets a better price. Everything that I sell is emission ready. We really try to go the extra mile for our customer. I don't have to pay an employee commission. I don't have to pay somebody to come out here and wash my cars. You know, I do it all from buying to selling from A to Z. I don't have the overhead where I have to raise the price on my vehicle to cover costs. Here at Automax, you're going to guarantee that you get credit. As long as you're making those payments, you're going to build on your credit. Unlike the buy here, pay here's where they don't report to credit bureaus, we report to all three credit bureaus. The subprime lenders that we deal with, you don't have to have any credit, or you can have bad credit. You can even have a bankruptcy, a repossession.
Don't worry, just relax. You need a car. Come to Automax.
Automax, across from Central High on Highway 58 in Harrison. Automax, 643-2886. That's 643-2886. Go to AutomaxChat.com. That's AutomaxChat.com.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured, member of the working financially disadvantaged, choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge, I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QuickSurg. Relief.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Saudi Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
All systems go.
Got a printing project on deadline? Advantage Printing in Brainerd offers the highest quality one-stop service in Chattanooga. Graphic design, printing, addressing. Don't create a mailer unless you first check with Alan about the latest postal hassle. He'll handle the whole thing for you. Advantage Printing. Your advantage is in our name. 4031 Brainerd Road, next to the bylaw.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga. CBS News. I'm Harley Carnes. Oklahoma's death penalty drug is constitutional. One of the rulings from the Supreme Court today.
Justice Samuel Alito says the use of the controversial sedative midazolam in lethal injections is not cruel and unusual punishment. He says prisoners challenging it have failed to offer any reasonable alternatives. Midazolam has been substituted for sodium thiopental, which has become unavailable. Kent Scheidegger of the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation.
Anybody who is against it because of the particular drug involved should be working to restore the supply of the preferred drug.
Barry Bagnotto, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
Oklahoma is also considering a simpler method of using nitrogen to gas the condemned painlessly. The court also told the EPA it cannot just write up new regulations without considering the economic impact first. And in Arizona, it's legal for a special commission to redraw political districts instead of the state legislature. Greece is the monkey wrench today in the spokes of world stock markets. Greece on the edge of default, under intense pressure to make more painful changes in its economic approach or lose any more bailouts from the EU. Greek banks are closed. The stock market there is closed. There are long lines at ATMs for the minimal withdrawals allowed. Eugene Peroni at Advisors Asset Management says, look for a silver lining here.
Certainly we're getting the expected reaction, but it might not last all that long because this is something that had been out in the papers, had been debated for some time, and so Wall Street, I think, was kind of expecting something along these lines.
On Wall Street, the Dow's down 240 points, NASDAQ's off 81. Residents in small towns within a 40-mile circle of Clinton Prison in Dannemora, New York, getting back to their lives now that both escaped prisoners, Richard Matt and David Sweat, have been killed or captured. And officials are bringing charges against anyone they think may have been part of the breakout.
I'm Jim Krasul in far northern New York. Gene Palmer, a guard at the Clinton Correctional Facility, from which David Sweat and Richard Matt escaped June 6th, will make a first court appearance on charges related to the escape. Among other things, the longtime prison guard is accused of illegally accepting and then destroying a painting from Matt, who was considered to be an accomplished artist, within the walls of the prison in Dannemora.
That's Jim Krasula. 100-degree temperatures, tinder dry brush, and strong winds sent a wildfire roaring into a neighborhood in central Washington state, 120 miles east of Seattle. Several hundred homes have been evacuated. Keelan Fire Chief Phil Moser.
The fire was pushing into a little subdivision called Sleepy Hollow Heights. Roughly 50 to 60 structures in there.
Hundreds of firefighters are on the job. Many more are streaming in to help. Stung to death by bees in South Texas, a farmer, Rogelio Zuniga, was tilling a field with his tractor when he hit an old concrete pipe full of bees. He died right there. The hive was more than 15 feet long. You're listening to CBS Radio News, honored with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Best Newscast for the third year in a row. This is CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? I'm Jim O'Connor, independent life insurance agent specializing in term life insurance. There's been a price war between the major life insurance companies. If you've had your term life policy more than 2 years, you may be paying too much. For example, a male age 45 non-tobacco user issued Preferred Best, $1 million of coverage is only $56 a month guaranteed level for 10 years. Or a male age 50 non-tobacco user issued Preferred Best, $500,000 of coverage is only $91 a month guaranteed level for 20 years. The life insurance industry is going through exciting changes. Make sure you're not paying too much for your term insurance. For new or replacement term life insurance, call for a free quote. 800-799-0903. That's 800-799-0903. Don't pay too much for your term insurance. Call 800-799-0903 or visit my website at term22.com. That's term22.com. Rates based on standard underwriting and may vary by state.
Remember Michael J. Fox's hoverboard in Back to the Future? Well, life mimics art again. Engineers in Tokyo have come up with a prototype that works.
It's known as the Slide, a carbon fiber skateboard that floats just above the ground. It uses the same superconducting magnetic levitation technology propelling trains in Asia. Unfortunately, there are no plans to sell the flying skateboard. It's a warm-up for Toyota's eventual plan to build flying cars. Lucy Kraft, CBS News, Tokyo.
The official death toll from faulty ignition switches in small General Motors cars is up to 119 now. GM recalled 2.6 million cars last year because the keys could jiggle on rough roads and switch off inopportunely. 243 people injured in resultant crashes will be offered compensation from the special counsel. Thousands of people made claims, but 90% of them were tossed out. Harley Carnes, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
American pastors, clergymen in churches across the country are not fresh in their long assertions of the disconnection between Christianity and politics. There's antecedents way back, and one of the ones I'm thinking of is a writer named Marsilius of Padua, who was born in 1275 and died about 1342. He was an Italian scholar and wrote a very important book called Defensor Pacis. And what he did in that book, I think it was written in Latin, one I have not read, obviously, was to promote a virtually unlimited monarchical power. And what he did was separate the work of the church, the Roman Catholic Church, of which he was a high official, to separate that so that the operation of Christianity, as he envisioned it, would be really totally privatized. And finally, in the outworking of his Marsilius's ideas, it would be subjectivized. It would be private. In other words, Christianity is something that you don't exercise. It's something you believe. It's something that you think about. It's something in which you pray to God. You study quietly on your own your Bible. You maybe pass out a tract or two. You may talk with a friend about your Christian convictions, about the Lord Jesus being the Son of God and the Savior of sinners, such as yourself. And then, of course, on the Lord's Day, you go to church, and there the church has its rites and rituals, and it may have a little sermon, and a lot of that, of course, in Latin that the common man doesn't understand. But the man, the commoner, looking at the glorious magic, if you will, of the Roman rite, believes that God has favored him with His grace and His salvation, and goes home content with being a Christian. And that sort of separation is what Marsilius was very important in his book Defensor Pacis, political treatise that had a very high view, though, of the committee, right? The state, the power that resides in the king or the emperor. And he was influential in many ways, and indirectly, though I think Americans don't know his name. He, according to R.J. Rushdoony in a lecture, has been vastly influential. In other words, you have a privatized Christianity, and there is no claim that God, as described in the scriptures, right? There's no claim He makes upon culture as a whole. And He is certainly not a sovereign God. He is certainly not one whose law imposes itself upon people and directs them what to do. It is a deity posited by Marsilius and the modern evangelical Christian that has brought us to our great crisis. And I say our great crisis because it affects even you, even though you are not a member, my listener, of a church and have not been in church in a long time. It does affect you because let me back up here. Your fortunes as a businessman, as a family man, as a man who owns property, your fortunes are tied. I would say they're tied. Well, firmly, they're tied firmly to the fate of Christianity in the United States, the strength of Christianity or the weakness therein. If Christianity in the United States is weak, then you will be poorer and less free. And if Christianity, however, is strong and abides by its deep principles, the sovereignty of God, the irresistible grace, the claim of God upon all of life, the value of God's law, the necessity for personal piety and public piety, and such points as that, then you, my listener, though you're not a Christian at all, don't really care much about religion, you will be better off and richer for it, and you'll have more freedom, and your children will have more liberty. ones that they don't have now, right? Your children have long been deprived of liberties that you gave up that were yielded 100 years ago by the Christian church. And if you go to Nuganomics.com, there's a very fine analysis by a Bulgarian, a man named Bojidar Marinov, who's a big strapping Texan anymore. And he's asking how far back America's pastors are willing to roll the ball. In other words, if they're gonna stand their ground now, well, can they really do that on marriage? There's indignation among Christian ministers. There are people who are saying that they will, they'll lie down in front of a bulldozer if that's what it takes to stop the gay mudslide, the gay bulldozer, if you will. And it's coming wave of harassment and bitter and anger. That is what is promised. It is, gay theory is much like ISIS. It doesn't take any prisoners, and it counts on immolation to set the example, to teach people that they must submit to the theory. They must submit, and they must give no sign of having opposition. They must not give any sign of having reservations about the reigning paradigm. Now, American Christianity has yielded many things. It has, he says, has for the 100 years at least. The Christian ministers have declared that the Bible doesn't have anything to do with the political realm, that the gospel is limited to the individual soul and the institutional church. He says, and therefore has nothing to say about the powers in the land. It's not the pastor's job to talk politics, has been the refrain. And since politics is where the issues of justice and injustice have been discussed and resolved, because law is, all law and all government really is a form of the judge, right? A form of justice. The court is the center of justice, and the court really is the center of government, though we've of course expanded in our strong humanism. We've expanded that labor of the state. But the argument now against an unjust law, as it's called, it is just an opinion, but it's viewed by all as a law. It has created some very bold comments from Christian ministers. But what about the creation of the IRS back at the time of the creation of the central bank? Of course, the IRS was needed to skim away the excess credit that the bank, that intended eventually to be a fully paper money organism. But it was by design that it was necessary because of the dishonesty, of its operation. It needed to have a way of skimming up the excess capital, the excess credit that it created in the borrowing world. So that was why the IRS came about. Did the church object to that? What about the creation of the Social Security Administration? Another violation of the Eighth Commandment against theft. What about the 501c3 clause in the Internal Revenue Code and the control implied thereby in pulpits? Now, interestingly enough, this week I'm involved in a small Christian church that intends to dissolve its corporation, to dissolve the corporate charter so that it will no longer be a religious charity, a religious corporation in state law, but a church. A church has a much greater strength than a religious organization. It has not exemption, it has immunity. And well, I'll mention there's a story in Time. I better mention now before I forget. A story in Time magazine essay, and the headline is that Orthodox Christians must now learn to live as exiles in our own country. Well, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Another one, also in Time, where a writer brings up the old argument that tax exemptions need to be removed from charities and churches because that is in fact a subsidy. And if we can't have government subsidizing anything that doesn't comply with the new theory of law, right? The new theory of marriage, and we need to start cleaning house, right? We've got to clean house and close off any benefit that might come to the house of God. But the church, it's important to remember, the church is not exempt from taxation. It's immune from taxation, but only if it's a church and not a religious organization. A religious organization is a favor from government, and that's what every church that's incorporated has. And the favor is even deeper, and it's comes from the national power. If the church has gone the length or the distance of getting a 501c3 tax exemption, that's when the church goes into business. Often it does that. It goes church and commerce, right? Then it has that nonprofit status. Well, ministers have not complained about the Fed. They They were silent about Roe v. Wade and what has been a holocaust of tens of thousands of children here in Tennessee. In our county alone, the time that the abortion clinic was operational, it destroyed about 30,000 children. You can read about that at the only website in Chattanooga, the only news outlet that speaks about it, and that is Nuganomics.com, of which I'm the editor. By the way, I am the editor, and I do appreciate your going there. It is a website that's not very popular, especially not now. And it's not popular because it is interested in helping the man who matters. Now, if you go online, make sure you prove yourself a man who matters. The website, again, is Nuganomics.com. And we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, by the way, the station that says that we should love our neighbors and buy local. And the national economy, the national theory says the following. Now, I want to ask you, do you, my listener, dissent from these points? It says that far is better than near. What about that? Do you agree with that? It says that big is better than small. Does that sound plausible to you? It also says that simple is better than complex. No, it doesn't say that. No, you agree with that one, right? Because it doesn't say that. Well, that's what I say. Now, the national economy also says that corporate is better than personal. What about that one? And it says that abstract is better than physical. Well, we know that there are some times where that's true. But by and large, if we're going to have local economy and a stronger local economy here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, it needs to be just the opposite. And dissent is not just saying no to something. My argument is an affirmative. And I hope I can, if my time doesn't run out, to say something about in having a crisis that we have now, especially on marriage and especially on, well, in the national economy, they're continuing these rolling disasters. What do we do? And the question is not, what do we get other people to do? That's not really what I want to talk about. And that's not what our show is about. It's not what we can get Congress to do, right? What we can get the Republican Party to do. That's not what we care about. There's not anything that those people can do. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Christian church has not said anything about immigration restriction laws, which are unconstitutional, and they're also anti-biblical. Immigration laws that prevent the free movement of people are ungodly. Christianity should see that, and Christianity should say, well, we are not for border controls at all. We want there to be people able to go where they can flee tyranny and enemies and mayhem and come to a place where they can make a living and work hard. Every Guatemalan in Chattanooga, I'm willing to bet, is a hard-working man, and they're family people, they're pro-life, they're libertarian in their leanings, they're against foreign wars. Think about that. And if they vote Democratic, it's only because the Democrats have a better argument for prosperity on the point of movement of people than Republicans do. The church has said nothing about the standing army of police, which is designed specifically to rob the population in favor of the political class and to keep political dissenters suppressed. The church has said very little about no-fault divorce laws. It has said nothing on the creation and the expansion of the government school system, a clear violation of the very first, the Ten Commandments, which says that you shall have only God as your God and no other, because education is an inherently religious enterprise. It is inherently religious. It is not ever able to be neutral. What has the church said about foreign wars? What about government regulations which ban or restrict individuals from fulfilling their calling under God to take dominion over the earth? That's by licensure. When's the last time you heard a sermon about the evils of commercial government owning the hairstyling business? When's the last time you heard a sermon about that, right? Do you know any Christian minister? I know you're not a churchgoer, but can you imagine any Christian minister in Chattanooga even thinking about something like that? What about eminent domain? What about the Christian position on gun control laws? What about civil asset forfeiture? That is a vice. That is an official vice. That is one of the most heinous damages on the right of property here in Tennessee and here in Chattanooga. What about on bank bailouts? What about on automaker bailouts? What about agricultural subsidies? When's the last time that you've heard a Christian person, in terms of the biblical argument, in terms of the biblical principle of loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul? When's the last time you heard the claim of God on any of those areas? Well, you haven't. The decision to overturn marriage, the decision to deconstruct marriage in Washington on Friday was a logical and expected element of a century-long invasion of society by different levels of civil government, in violation of the principles of limited government and individual liberty established where? Well, your Christian people don't ever hear where those principles are established. They're established in the Bible. They're established in Christianity. For a while, the pastors were left immune to that invasion, Mardinov says. They had their 501c3 status, which protected their donations. It was the hardworking people, productive middle class, tithe-paying ordinary members of their churches that got hit the worst by the predatory expansion of government agencies and laws. The pastors didn't care. They remained silent while the government was destroying the liberty and the property, and sometimes the lives, too, of their church members, while at the same time asking for tithes and donations for supporting the very churches that remained silent at all these injustices. The decline in giving and tithing in the last 50 years, he says, is only the natural consequence of this passivity and this sort of indifference to the public square. And I think we need to understand that some of the vows that we've heard may seem kind of nonsensical given this past view, this loss of the Puritan hope. Ian Murray is an English theologian and has a very good history. I just finished reading called The Puritan Hope. And in all Christianity influenced by the Puritan thought, where God is sovereign and God is going to conquer the world, that hope was lost in the late 1700s and early 1800s by the rise of Darbyism. And it's a theory which has control of Christianity in the United States by and large, especially here in the South. And it's one that is very pessimistic, that says that there is no hope. The only hope people have is in Christ's return. Well, the Reformed view, the post-millennial view, if you will, much more optimistic, says that Christianity will continue to eventually cover the earth like leaven the lump of dough. It will cover every tongue, every tribe, every nation, and every industry, every calling, every profession, every area of specialization will have one of God's claims upon it. Now, you say, well, that sounds like the Moors. Well, the Muslims have that idea too. But of course, the difference between Christianity and the Muslim theory is that Christianity is revealed by God in the scriptures, and the Muslim theory comes from a more recent, a man who has his own ideas of who God is and who created a whole system, a military system, a political military system of thought and life. It is very comprehensive, and Christianity is comprehensive too. So what we need to see is that Christianity has, though its practitioners deny it, it has a comprehensive world and life view. It is a system. It is a system of thought and life. It is internally consistent. Though, of course, Christians are sinners and they can't see everything correctly. But in itself, apart from our sinful natures, Christianity is a system of life and thought that goes down into the details. And we are facing a lively time now where there's going to be persecution. And I think much of the persecution will be simply misguided and over the top. It'll be over the top, and the gay practitioners will eventually realize that they've gone too far and that there's going to be a long-term retrenchment of gay activism. The 1.6% of the people in America who are allegedly practicing gays, they are going to see that they now have a lot of enemies that they didn't have. Yes, they didn't have Friday, right? Friday, there was only goodwill, and Christians are very open and generous people, and the evils that gays ascribe to culture at large, how they're an oppressed people, they're always in fear of losing their jobs and so on. That hasn't been true for 20 years, and that's because Christians are gracious people by and large, even though they have a system of thought and life that contradicts gay theory, particularly on marriage and sexuality. They are gracious people, and so the lies are now going to be laid aside, and Christians are going to be in mass, as we're going to understand it, the targets of vilification, the targets of litigation. And and some of these Christians like to wave the Confederate battle flag too. And they're not going to be very patient when hearing about gay lawsuits on ministers and florists and bakers, and that's going to last for a little while. But then I think the strength of gay theory is going to dry up. It's going to dry up culturally, and it will largely be forgotten. Though the poison of Obergefell's decision will corrode the Western law, our Anglo-Saxon legal heritage in our law. It will be a long-term poison that will be extremely destructive. And we have to hope that there'll be a breakup of the country before the poison destroys all morality and all capital. And I think it will. This decision is a great momentum to secessionist movements in this country. There's going to be much more interest in the idea of separation, peaceful separation, though, of course, the establishment can't have that because it has all of its debts that it wants the people in the hinterlands to pay, right? All the debts, all the programs that need to be paid for by the taxpayers, though these things all run on their own anyway. Taxes are so small, they hardly pay for the good people's programs. It's all borrowed into existence. So the great threat is against the dollar. The magic of the dollar, the magic of new thinking that is going to be holding its own. It's going to hold its own for a while, but it's going to probably lose a lot of steam probably in the next 5 years. But there's going to be a very bad time, a very difficult and bad time. And the good people don't know when to stop. They don't know when to quit. The gays don't know when to stop. Homosexual theory is vicious. It is against nature, and it doesn't read social signals very well. This is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. HotNewsTalkRadio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened our first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day of us passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. The U.S. Supreme Court says a controversial drug used in lethal injections does not violate the ban on cruel and unusual punishment.
Justice Samuel Alito writing for a 5-4 majority that there isn't sufficient evidence the sedative midazolam was responsible for botched executions in Oklahoma and Arizona, and says the challengers did not offer any alternatives for carrying out the death penalty.
Fox Radio's Jared Alpern. Dissenting justices said the court should consider whether the death penalty is unconstitutional. Dry weather and strong winds fueling a wildfire in Washington State.
I'm not sure how many homes were lost. 28 was the last number that I had heard. Significant damage. Those are not only our friends, but our community members.
Wenatchee Mayor Frank Kuntz. Google is getting on board with railroad regulators. It's agreed to let its Google Maps alert users as they approach track crossings after a recent rise in deadly train and vehicle crashes. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
The bank holiday in Greece and the crunch among the lenders and the borrowers in Greece have depressed the American stock market. The Standard & Poor 500 index is down 1.68% or 35.2 points. The Dow, much smaller index, is down 281.5 points. That's about 1.57%. So those two indices are down about 1.5% today in trading, greatly overvalued both. And part of the bubble economy of which we are part here in Chattanooga, which we pin our hopes on, I would say, to our peril. One of my nostrums as I write about local economy and think about it and try to understand it, right, and try to be a genuine local provincial person. Rather than one just pretending to be, right? Rather than just an academic egghead trying to live out an ideal. You know, how do I actually be a localist? How do I actually be a provincialist? I'd like to be one, and I'm not born that way. I'm not gifted that way, and yet here I am on my show every day. I'm trying to figure it out. How do we become wealthier? How do we become better people? And how do we do it here? The here is essential. I'm not talking about being wealthier, being a better person, being more intelligent in the abstract, right? I'm doing it. I'm trying to have everything I offer you, my listener, in the context of Chattanooga. How do we do it here? And how do we improve ourselves and make the most of it, even as the markets go down? Well, I mentioned the stock markets only to. Well, I mentioned it because it is news today, but I also have the idea that, as I was mentioning a moment ago, that gay shares are in decline. I think gay shares peaked socially, as far as social capital goes, last summer in the exciting times of many decisions at the appellate level and the district level against the states and their marriage regimes, and shares, I think, drifted lower. They drifted lower, and then. And what happened Friday? Was Friday a major sell-off, or was it a major parabolic climb in value of gay shares? I don't think gay shares rose, and I say that not because I'm overlooking the celebrations across the country in streets and parades and lit White Houses and that sort of excitement. I'm not discounting that, but I'm saying that the argument ended with the decision being published, as the dissenters said. There is no more argument about it. The lines are drawn. There's not going to be anyone converting anybody else, right? There's no gay theory can make in the general public anymore. Now it's war, and the trenches are being dug. The lines are set, and so now gay theory in its mind, it's on the ascendancy, right? We have the world in front of us. We're going to make everything conform to this law, to this opinion, right? We're going to make every law conform to this opinion, and we're not going to let anybody with a biblical idea or Christian concept or a traditional notion, we're not going to let anyone get any federal subsidies, any tax breaks, any recognition. We're going to make hell. We're going to make it life hell for anybody from the traditional view, right? The view of marriage is we're going to make marriage a hell to defend. If you want to defend marriage, well, we have it too, but we want you to defend your version of it. You defend marriage per se. We're going to make it a bad time for you. And my goal has been, as a writer and the editor of Nuganomics.com and the owner of this media platform. We are a media platform, by the way, and it is not just a radio station, right? We broadcast, we multicast, we penicast even. I'm modifying the word penetrate. We penetrate out and down through several media. Radio, yes, we are AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with our powerful tower in Saudi Daisy, and our signal beaming all around the area, all across Chattanooga. But that is one group. We also broadcast online at hotnewstalkradio.com. And that website plays instantly. You call it up. We're there broadcasting the moment you open the website. Not a fancy website. And also on your smartphones, you get the TuneIn Radio app. It's a free app, and you just get that, and you can type in Hot News Talk Radio, and there we are. And you can see whether I have a bow tie on today or not. Today, I'm not wearing one. I'm wearing a shirt that doesn't seem to match any bow ties that I have in my supply, and I wisely, discreetly opted not to risk passing Jeanette, who was working on her computer in the living room, to pass her and scornfully say, "David, you know that doesn't match." So I just said, "Well, okay, I'll be a good boy and just wear a regular tie." And so you can see that on your smartphone. And also, just by the way, we have a half price website, our half price web page at Hot News Talk Radio. Everything there is off half price, including pizza and cell phone repairs and all kinds of other gizmos and gadgets and miscellany. Okay, it's all miscellany, and we are trying to provide a home for maybe an orphan good or two, and I'm sure you'll find some things there of value to you. We think that if we love our neighbors, we'll buy local. We favor local over national. We are prejudiced, right? We are prejudiced for local, and want you to prosper here. And so you're hearing the markets are going down. The equities markets, they're very overvalued to begin with, and who knows, maybe there'll be the little pinprick that makes one of several bubbles come down back to reality. We don't have real capitalism anymore. We have crony capitalism and debt bank capitalism. And no one knows what those shares are really worth. But I would guess that if you're using the dollar as the paper dollar as your momentary standard, that they're probably worth a third of what we are seeing numbers for on the boards. I want to mention to you that if you have indoor air pollution, make sure you contact Ducts, the indoor air professionals, formerly known as Duct Busters. Ducts will clean the mold and mildew out of your ductwork and find and destroy the lost Lego aftermarket pieces that fell down the vent. Okay, they will take care of that. And there's a special for you. If you have your house done, the Ducts crew, without charge, will take care of your dryer vent. That is a fire hazard. Make sure Ducts takes care of that. Call the number. That's a $100 value, by the way. Call the number 876-9907, 876-9907. And I wanted to give a plug here for Delia's. Delia's is my restaurant for Mexican fare. I'm not a very adventurous eater, but I do enjoy Delia's, and I have been there several times, and glad to let you know about Maria Hernandez. And make sure you go to Delia's. It's in South Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike, right near the Thrasher Light. The freshest ingredients, all cooked to perfection. Nachos, quesadillas, tamales, enchiladas, all those good things. Now, if you're from Germany, you need to know how Americans eat when they go south of the border. So try Delia's. The special today is the taco salad. Okay, mention our station, hey, and you'll get some free iced tea. as well. We are 1240 AM Hot News Talk Radio. And I think the thing I've been wanting to get to, I think prompted by a letter I sent off this morning to a daughter, and she's a sculptress, and she's living in the Netherlands. She has a fellowship for 3 months in a little village. She's the in-house sculptress and artist, and there's some beautiful photographs of her posted today. And I had a letter to her, and part of the thing that I'm trying to have my fatherly influence on this young woman, favoring God, right? Favoring God and His ways. And I know you're not a Christian, but here's just a brief insight as to how a Christian dad will deal with his daughter to encourage her. She's not married, and yet she has a friend in New York, where she has been living for several years now. She's 23 and has lived for several years in New York as her own artist, right? She has her own studio and went to an atelier there. And I suggest that vis-a-vis young men who are not Christians, I want to bring up a couple things here, and one of them is that God is not mocked. God's law cannot be disregarded, and should be your rule of life and liberty. Because in the end, God's law is about liberty. You might say it's oppressive, but in fact, God's law is the source of equity. Equity, of course, is justice, right? Your Chris Brookses and your liberal Christians they always think that God's law is about social welfare run by gigantic agencies like HHS. That's in their mind. That's where Christianity has its strength, is in the modern state. But actually, it's in God's law, and God's law is, as I suggested this young woman, it is the source of life and liberty. God's law is about that very thing, about liberty. Sin is always an enslavement, a darkening of the prospect, a tying into a hopeless and despairing theory or person. Here I'm warning her about her young man friend who's not a Christian. Rejection of godly alliances and principles brings disaster, illegitimacy, and ceaseless compromise. A fundamental break from God's law will create a train of necessities that each urgency in turn will break further from God's order. That order is made for our benefit and God's glory. And then I say, well, she's living among people who are probably, I don't think there are any Christians even among her relations in her little town there in the Netherlands. And I say, I mentioned her male friend in New York, and I'm urging her caution. I want her to marry in the faith, which is what Christians are required to do. Christians have to marry in the faith, because Christianity is a system of life that brings about capital, right? It brings about value, and Christians are forbidden to marry those who reject the gospel, right? They're, the heathen, the ungodly, those who are outside of God's grace. Cannot be the object of one's love. So please be careful. The claims of Christ that recede from your mind in these conversations are still lawful and true claims, and in them you find your true self. Just as the court's ruling makes us aliens in our own land, so a foreign alliance, meaning an alliance with a man who's not a Christian, so a foreign alliance of the heart will make you an alien in the country of your own soul. And that is what I'm afraid of, that she will not marry a Christian, and that she will have an alliance that is alienating to her own soul. And that's what's and I think that the whole idea of alienation was a stark one. And in fact, there's an essay in Time magazine by a writer named Rod Dreher, and he says that Orthodox Christians must now learn to live as exiles in our own country. And he's talking about the extremism of the sexual revolution, and the coming war, the war that will be launched, especially through the corporate world, right? It's going to be coming when the corporations and commercial government work. The war can't reach the private life, but it can reach any dealing through corporations or through commercial governments. And so how is it that we're to be exiles? And then I think you've already heard some things about that, but I want to argue, if I can, or just tell you what I want to say about the crisis and what is it we can do now? What is it we can do ourselves here? Not just in terms of the onrushing mudslide that is tied up, is connected with, I think, the war against the South, the war against agrarian ideals, the Confederate sense of independence, the war to prevent Southern independence, right? This was the second war for independence that was fought under that banner. The first national flag, and then unofficial flags such as the battle flag, which was never, I don't think it was approved by the Confederate Congress. It was a field measure. It was a field not a compromise, but it was a field innovation to let Southern soldiers know where their lines were amid the smoke of battle. And the earlier flags didn't make a very clear signal. So together, the war by gays against marriage, the war against marriage, and the war against the South have come in about the same week. And it really is a time causing great excitement among people. And I think there are going to be some painful results. I think there's going to be some death on account of it. And that's because I think people, especially Southerners, especially people who often live by instinct and not by thought, they're going to react violently to oppressions. And it's not going to be pretty. It won't all be handled in court, right, by people making arguments. It'll be handled by people on streets. And I think that's people who are Christians, professing Christians, should be very careful about that and not to be involved in that kind of argument. Though people who make no professions of Christianity, they're not going to they don't like gays to begin with. They don't like homosexuals, and they don't like the attack on the flag and the attack on the South and the cowering of public officials. Public officials to them, as Governor Haslam, as Bill Knowles, even others like Scott Walker, who's something of a fraud. Scott Walker is such a fraud. These people, whether they're candidates in office now, they're not going to give any kind of satisfaction, though they have grounds with which to give satisfaction. As I've argued here at Nuganomics.com, I've argued that there are not just personal reasons for saying no to the gay demand for a marriage license. I would say there are legal reasons, but these of course have made no difference. They've made no difference, but it has been important for me as a writer and editor and as a media person, I think maybe by now, am I a media personality? Do you think I am? I don't know. I never think myself that way, but because it's a little vain to do so. But well, in this crisis, I think the local economy argument would suggest several points. And number one is, don't think that other people are going to solve the problem, and don't have hopes for other people to do so. Don't have hopes for new laws, for constitutional amendments for marriage, like Scott Walker, the Republican candidate, and he's a governor. He's governor of Michigan. These are all just noise. They're just noise, and new laws, well, maybe or maybe not. But I think what we have to do is not think, what can we do here and now? What can we do that's part of securing our assets, securing our prospects, and having a family? Your family, your marriage, is the testimony that has to be the argument against the erstwhile gay marriage, right? Your marriage to your good woman, your good wife, that and how you treat her and how you treat your children, that's a work of submission, right? That's a work of submission to your alliance with her that you need to work on. So I would say that rather than be indignant about the Supreme Court, I would say that we should worship God. We should be indignant about the abuse against him, and like David was when he heard the challenge of Goliath, the Philistine there in the valley of Elah, and was indignant that no Israelite soldier dared go out and fight that man, meet his challenge. For a month, he went out. The pagan went out every day with his armor bearer and his coat of mail and his helmet, and defied the armies of the living God. And that kind of indignation, I think, against that should have an internal use, not just an external expression on Facebook, right? Not just making noise about good things on Facebook. I think we neuter ourselves as well-meaning people, as Christians, maybe not you, but as Christians and well-meaning people, that would be you, my listener. We make ourselves weak by somehow gaining satisfaction in uttering an opinion about something on Facebook. That's not where the work is. Okay, the work is not there really at all. And it has to be. How about this? How about having a baby, right? You, my listener, you know, I have another baby. Why? Because you're confident of the future. Christian people, I think, often don't have this optimism, and they should. They should have it like the Israelites had it as their enslavement deepened. They continued to have baby after baby after baby, and the midwives, whom Pharaoh told to kill the Israelite children, they were busy all the time. Why were they so busy? Well, because the people of Israel, though they were in slavery, had hope. They had hope for deliverance, and they had hope in God. They were confident of the future. You have to have confidence in the future to have a baby, to make love without protection, right? And think about that. Don't count the cost of dollars, because God provides always for his children. And even if you're not a Christian, you need to have confidence that that there is provision and that things happen, right? When you have a baby, things happen. Good things happen, not just at home, but out in the world as well, in your favor. Now, another point I would say, starting your own business and working toward a cash economy. Now, I think a cash economy is where we need to really work hard. We here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, we are very, very bad in this. We use credit cards all the time. I think we should really start working to have a cash economy. Have $400 or $500 on your person. Okay, shock yourself. Go to the bank. Tell that sleepy clerk you want $10, $50, $50 bills. Shock that person. You're gonna, if we all got $200, you my listener, and everybody else whom theoretically could be listening to this show, went to the bank and got $100 in cash today, we could bring down the banking system. I think it would really happen. There's so little cash in the system, and that's why Greece is such a warning. Greece is telling you that the system is based on a fractional reserve, and it does not have cash. It does not have cash, and if you have your deposits in there and there's a bank holiday, well, you're just going to have to wait. You'll get $60 a day, or you'll get some piece of paper at the end that says in 4 years you'll have the right to get your money back from the state treasury, right? The state has bailed out the bank you're in. Well, if we go towards a cash economy, not using credit cards. Don't forget, the credit card imposes a national tax on local economy, a tax anywhere from 1% to 5%, depending on the credit card. Amex, I think, is the most expensive, and I don't know exactly how high the fee is, but it's a huge fee. It's a huge fee. That fee props up the whole system. If that fee weren't being paid, what would happen to the system? Think about it. If millions of people stop using credit cards, that system would implode. Maybe. Don't hope on it, but it could happen. And then also, you're going towards the cash economy. And then another point in the same direction is investing in yourself. Divest national. Sell your mutual fund. Sell your stocks. They're all overpriced. If you have big companies like, I won't name any names, but many major companies have cannibalized themselves. And they're hollow. They're hollow businesses, and they've been financialized and drained by their executives. There's not much there, and yet they have these big names. And much of the financialization has gone to prop up the share price. Much of it, there have been $1 billion in share buybacks in recent years, and guess how the buybacks were paid for? That's right. These companies, these billion-dollar companies, borrowed billions and billions of dollars to buy their shares back to keep the asset, to keep the price on the marketplace good. Is that a kind of share asset you want to have in your portfolio? I wonder about that. I think maybe you should go into some cash. Get out. Just get out. Go to cash. Now, cash means liquidity, and that means, green rectangles, checking accounts, gold and silver, and things like that. Those are all highly liquid savings. You're not investing anymore. You're waiting. You are not investing. You are saving, and that's an important distinction to make. Invest in local economy, a local business, or invest in yourself. And trust. I think is Boji Dadmonov is telling us. You can read his piece at Nuganomics.com, by the way. An excellent analysis of the gay and family crisis. We have too much trust in men, and we are not critical enough of them. And the Christian church, has not been critical of the tyrannies all around us. We have tyrannies at every point, just about. And the Christian church has not believed enough in God to see them as evils, which they are. And evils are expensive, right? Evils are costly. They make systems that don't work anymore, and they make systems brittle and caught in a fog of magic, a mist of magic, and things will work out. They'll just work out if we can borrow some more. If we can just get another $1 trillion loan, we'll be okay. So the thinking goes. And you also need to think about homeschooling. Homeschooling is probably the most important. That and the local food movement. These are two very important leading edge developments in Chattanooga. Homeschooling. By the way, there's a homeschool expo taking place July 17 and 18. That's July 17 and 18 at Camp Jordan Arena. You can find out more about it by going to csthea.org. That's csthea.org. It's a website. I'm the editor of the newsletter for that organization. In fact, I just pushed the button this morning on 28 big pages going out to hundreds of moms and families in the Chattanooga area. I do want to encourage them, and I want to encourage you, my listener. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you're here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you calling me yeller? Them's just fighting words.
Being called yellow, not a compliment. Yellow, the international symbol for caution. Yellow. You certainly wouldn't want to eat yellow snow. Yuck. We typically avoid yellow. So why would you put your hard-earned money into an outdated, expensive, slower yellow page? Or even trust their advice? Especially when your hard-earned advertising dollars could go much further.